Update 4.4 brings us another 4 new weapons and refines. We have a fun little batch this time with some refines doubling down on a unit's playstyle and others adding a spicy new flavor to some of these older units. Today we'll talk about Gunter, Ursula, Mage Eirika, or whatever you want to call her, and we also have Gaius. We will discuss some builds and general playstyles for these new refines to make sure you know what you're getting into when you spend your 200 divine due. Let's get started. First up is Gunter. Last month we had Jagen, this month it's Gunter's time to shine. Now Gunter and Jagen are special because they actually get hit with a base stat total penalty because Intended Systems hates old people. For real though, these two have even lower BST than regular melee cavaliers, so just be aware these disgruntled veterans are already behind slightly. For Gunter, his new weapon is the Inveterate Axe. It has 16 might, and at the start of the turn, if Gunter has more than half health, inflict -5 attack and defense on the fallen enemy team with the lowest speed stat through their next action. Basically, this is sort of like a chill effect, where as long as Gunter is healthy, he will debuff someone. The slowest enemy is generally going to be a tankier unit, so they'll lose some stats and either Gunter or his allies can finish them off. While a nice debuff for the team, you'll need to refine this weapon for some extra oomph. From 200 divine due, Gunter can then grant +4 attack and defense to all infantry and cavalry allies within 2 spaces during combat. If Gunter is within 2 spaces of an infantry and cavalry ally himself, he then receives the same stat boost. Basically, if Gunter is able to buff someone, he's also going to buff himself. In terms of stats, Gunter is Jagen's opposite. Decent HP, attack and defense, same speed stat, and terrible resistance. The attack and defense boost from the refine and the initial debuff effect work toward boosting Gunter's own damage and increasing that physical damage tanking potential. You can focus on his speed and resistance, but for the most part, Gunter will just want to avoid any mages or dragons. For playstyle and builds, if you aren't going to invest in speed, then Gunter will need quick riposte to kill stuff. We can copy the same build we gave Jagen from last month with the low attack and defense plus quick riposte combo, because with the Fate's Banner, we are getting Distant Foil. It's the physical damage counterpart to Distant Ward. Gunter gets +5 attack and defense if the enemy that initiates combat uses a sword, lance, axe, bow, dagger, or is a beast unit, and he will also be able to counterattack against bows and daggers too. With his low res stat, this skill would be okay for Gunter to fight off the ranged physical damage threats while also receiving a stat boost for the usual melee physical threats as well. For some additional A skills, you can find a bunch of other attack and defense boosting options. Sturdy Stance 3 would be good for the built-in guard effect, and then there is also attack and defense solo or the form skill, depending on what you can get a hold of. Attack and defense bond is both an A skill and sacred seal, but be sure to have quick riposte somewhere in the build, otherwise don't expect Gunter to be doing a lot of KOing. Now while we can try to boost Gunter's combat effectiveness, Inveterate Axe is still a supportive weapon. We can pile on more buffing skills, and also from the Fate's Banner is Joint Drive Attack, which is perfect for this weapon. It grants +4 attack to allies within 2 spaces, and like the refined for Inveterate Axe, Gunter would also get +4 attack if he is buffing anyone. As long as you have infantry and cavalry allies, Gunter can pass along +8 attack to his teammates and himself, and you still have room for a sacred seal. There are a lot of options like rally plus ruse skills, tactic buffs, spurs and drives, and closer distant guard also have that 2 space range. If you go with a full horse emblem team, any of the horse emblem buffs would be great too. All in all, Inveterate Axe is pretty much a defense counterpart to Jagen's weapon. Gunter gets to help his team with debuffs and buffs, and he gets a little boost to himself too. There are a few restrictions, like Gunter must have infantry or cavalry allies, plus he has to stay near them, so you're probably gonna have to play defensively anyway. Not an insane weapon, but for fans of the old guard, it's not a terrible boost. Our second new weapon is for Ursula, one of our oldest Grand Hero battle units. She can get the Blue-Crow Tome, which has 14 might, and keeps Ursula's original Wolf Tome in mind by being effective against cavalry units. Not the craziest effect, but cavaliers are usually squishier than most units, so even Ursula should be able to one-shot a bunch of them. A lot of camps also just have terrible res stats anyway. Now if you refine this tome, it will then grant bonus attack equal to the total stat penalties on foe during combat. This is the same refine icon as Matthew, but it's the original effect of Gunter's Blizzard Tome. Basically, Ursula will become a blue Gunter with the added bonus of blowing up cavaliers naturally. The downside is that Ursula doesn't have a great way to apply debuffs herself. Matthew is a dagger unit, so he naturally applies 2 -7 debuffs after attacking, and Gunter has her unique Chill B skill that is quite powerful. Ursula has threatened res, but being a range 3 movement unit, I think she would prefer a longer range debuffing skill. In general, Ursula is going to need some outside help to be most effective. The same applies to any weapon with a similar reverse blade tome effect, but Ursula really needs some assistance. Before moving on, just wanted to quickly discuss her stats. 29 attack isn't that amazing, but that's higher than Matthew, and she will deal magic damage. Her 32 base speed is alright if you want to invest in speed, but it will need some work. As for defensive stats, physical bulk is not that great, while 30 res is alright. It is a slight issue if you were thinking about using ploy debuffs though. That brings us to the first thing regarding playstyle. Obviously, Blue-Crow Tome needs debuffs to function. Res debuffs are a priority as they naturally increase magic damage anyway, so we're basically dumbing down on the damage. Threatened res can work, but it's not that useful with its short range. Res ploy would probably require Ursula to run something like Fury for the res boost, and so of course any merges would be appreciated. Chill res should definitely be on Ursula or her team somewhere. Then we have res smoke. Ideally it would be nice for Ursula to carry this herself, but she has to attack first to even apply the debuff, so it's more of a secondary way to apply it. Now for a super simple build, you could just go with double death blow 3. Ursula has death blow naturally, and we just got that sweet death blow sacred seal. For maximum damage you can use a low res skill as well, but that can also be a place for something like chill res. For the most part, unless you invest in speed, Ursula will be focused on one-shotting debuffed enemies. She should also just be able to one-shot most cavaliers anyway, debuffed or not. If you want to get some doubles, you could run Desperation with things like Swift Sparrow. It's not the craziest idea since Honed Cavalry is such an easy way to get +6 attack and speed buffs. Last we have the Close Counter plus Vantage set. Definitely should work, but again Ursula cannot apply debuffs like Matthew can. Matthew can run this set plus attack and speed smoke to apply debuffs to 4 different stats after combat, and then just sweep enemies with the Vantage skill. Ursula at best can run 2 smoke debuffs, but she does deal magic damage, which I think is a plus. For the most part, would only really try this set if you have a fully invested Ursula and you have a reliable debuffing team set up already. If Ursula can't fight a debuffed enemy, she just has a slightly stronger Wolf Tome. For those with Gunter and Harid, they would create a nice cavalry team for Ursula since they also rely on debuffs. Overall, not the most insane weapon in Refine, but these weapons can really pump out some damage if you aren't careful. Aether Raids also provides a lot of ways to debuff enemies with structures, so that is another alternative debuffing method. Blue-Crow Tome also seems to have a close enough animation to be bolting, so that is a nice little reference. I wonder if we'll ever get an actual bolting tome in Fae. Our third refine is for Mage Eirika. She is a part of the Hero's Path rewards and is worth holding on to because we only have 3 red Mage Cavaliers in the whole game. Comparatively, she has the most offensive potential with better attack and speed than Valentine's Titania, and we can get an attack and speed boon. Leo's not really worth comparing if you want an attacking red Mage Cavalier. For her Gleipnir Tome, it's a 42-minute weapon that grants a flat +3 resistance. Not really sure why, because Eirika only has 22 base res, and going up to 25 is not going to do much. You know, if this weapon was released today, that would be a +3 attack or +3 speed. For its base effect, if the foe's HP is 100%, grants attack and speed +4 during combat. This is the same base effect as before with a +1 attack and speed buff. Now if you grab the special refine at the start of combat, if foe's HP is equal to 100%, inflict attack, speed, defense, and res -4 on foe, and neutralizes units' penalties during combat. Alrighty, so we are doubling down on the 100% HP activation condition. Some people have an issue with that, and I get it. However, it is so incredibly common to fight a full health enemy because that's just the nature of this game, and it's pretty much always been a kill the enemy in one round of combat meta anyway. Not to mention, Tabarin has the exact same activation condition for his weapon, and no one calls him a bad unit, far from it. I think before this refine, it was more a question of, is a mere +3 attack and speed worth using Gleipnir over a Blade Tome? I bet most people would probably say not really. However, now Gleipnir effectively gives Eirika +8 attack and speed, and +4 defense and res just for fighting a full health foe. In addition, it neutralizes stat penalties, and I think this is a really interesting weapon to contrast with the ever popular Blade Tome. Blade Tomes are reliant on field buffs, and the panic status absolutely screws them over. We also have low B skills picking up popularity and frequency, and they disable field buffs too, which decrease Blade Tome damage. With Gleipnir though, Eirika is not purely reliant on buffs, and she won't get screwed by panic. Gleipnir will not negate panic, but it neutralizes the stat debuffs caused by panic, which means Eirika is never going to lose stats unless the enemy has in-combat debuffs. Being able to just not care about any stat debuffs is very nice, and it's going to make Refined Gleipnir a very consistent weapon. In terms of playstyle, this Eirika is very simple. Find a full HP target, not hard to do, and then blow them up in one single round of combat. Mage Eirika's base kit has Swift Sparrow and Desperation already in it, and with the Swift Sparrow Sacred Seal, we have the easiest plus 16 attack and speed you can ask for. Technically it's plus 12 attack and speed for Eirika, and the enemy has minus 4 speed and res, but that's basically the same thing. 0 help is required, and the enemy can't debuff her stats or turn any buffs into negatives. As long as Eirika initiates against a full health target, she gets all of those stats. In the case she survives, Desperation is going to be active, and then Eirika gets to double without retaliation, and she can go along killing the rest of the enemies. Unfortunately, because Eirika's defensive stats are so poor, I think Desperation is pretty much the only choice if you want her to continue killing. There are some alternatives to pair with it though. Fury is a pretty obvious replacement, as any extra defense and res is going to be appreciated, and the chip damage doesn't matter with Desperation. If it can keep Eirika alive for that very first fight, it's already worth it. As such, with less attack and speed, you can slot in Brazen attack and speed for a bigger payoff late game. Of course, Swift Sparrow 3 is a thing now, so she may just go with that instead. If you're looking for a C skill, you could try Attack Smoke to keep Eirika alive, since that minus 4 attack from the Refine is going to stack with the minus 7 attack debuff from the skill. Minus 11 attack can go a long way. We also have self-buffing C skills to get more stats. Ferdinand has Rouse speed and defense if Eirika is truly operating alone. For the most part, I would really recommend an offensive Desperation build for Mage Eirika, but if you truly only care about winning a single fight, then there is the low attack and res or low speed and res skills. These skills are going to get Eirika the most damage and negate the enemy's res buffs. I could see them being great if you have a defense team and you only care about Eirika taking out one enemy. For the most mad lads out there, or those with a fully invested plus 10 Mage Eirika at the ready, is the idea of a defensive build even worth considering? Well, Gleipnir itself provides a huge attack and speed boost and a smaller defensive boost with that minus 4 attack debuff. Could you run something like Fortress defense and res and low attack and res with defensive buffs? I mean, I guess you could, since Eirika's attack and speed would still be pretty solid without further attack and speed boosting skills, and she can't lose defense or res too. I don't think she would become a tank, but being able to take 2, 3, or 4 more hits would be very nice. I definitely do not recommend trying this and expecting it to work perfectly though. Overall, I do think this is a good refine because the original effect was very lacking. An effective plus 8 attack and speed is solid, and being able to negate stat debuffs is underrated for those clutch situations. For a unit that every player can get a hold of with very little in-class competition, I think this new Gleipnir is worthy 200 Divine due. The last weapon for today is the Candied Dagger for Gaius. This is kind of a wonky weapon. It's not bad, but it looks more interesting than it actually is, so we are going to be looking at this weapon carefully. First off, Candied Dagger is a 4 teammate weapon, and if Gaius initiates combat, he gets plus 4 speed and deals damage by 10% of his speed stat during combat. First off, there's a description mistake. In game, it currently says it boosts damage by 10% of Gaius' speed, but it has been tested and it's shown to be dealing true damage. That means the correct word should be deals damage, which is in line with other true damage effects. If Gaius initiates, he gets that plus 4 speed, and when his base 36 speed, that means he's gonna have 40 speed total. 10% of 40 speed is 4 true damage. If you can get Gaius to 50 speed, this becomes 5 damage, and if he goes supersonic at 60 speed, it becomes 6 damage. For the special refine, at the start of combat, if the foe was at 100% HP, Gaius deals another plus 7 true damage. However, if a special triggers before combat and foe is at full health, you deal plus 7 damage before combat. This second part of the effect is only for AoE specials, unless we get new specials that happen before combat. The AoE special procs, and Candied Dagger adds a one-time plus 7 damage. This is where some strange things happen, because the second part of the effect ensures the foe takes at least 7 damage before combat. When combat actually starts, the foe won't be at full HP, so the first part of the effect will not activate. It's a very confusing way of saying Gaius deals plus 7 damage at least once versus a full HP enemy. The one thing is that if Gaius doubles, he would apply his true damage effects twice versus the one time it procs with the AoE special. Candied Dagger doesn't really make AoE specials easier to use either, so it's not like Gaius should be running those specials anyway. His base attack is on the lower side, and he would have to run Special Spiral and Flashing Blade if he wanted to always spam it. For most Gaiuses, he's gonna get either 4 or 5 true damage when initiating, and if you fight a full HP target, he gets that extra plus 7 damage on hit too. This is totally solid. That's like a plus 11 attack boost, and Gaius gets some extra speed too. The thing with Candied Dagger is that at its heart, it's basically a damage-oriented dagger. When we talked about Mage Eirika's Gleipnir, it's obvious that she is supposed to take down full health enemies 100 to 0 in one go. She doesn't get true damage, but would true damage even matter for this playstyle? The answer is not really. Candied Dagger seems to want Gaius to play the same as Eirika in killing foes in one round from full HP to 0. It has 2 applications of true damage, but plus 11 true damage is basically the same as plus 11 attack. The true damage moniker only matters if Gaius were to deal 0 base damage, and if he's dealing no base damage, there's no way plus 11 true damage is gonna kill a full health target. If Gaius wants to attack a weakened foe, he loses 7 damage, and Candied Dagger essentially becomes a Swift Sparrow dagger. What I'm getting at is that despite the fancy description, this weapon isn't as crazy as it might seem. The focus on true damage doesn't really matter as much because you can't use it with poke or chip damage skills like Savage Blow. There's not really a strong synergy with AoE specials, and if you want a Vantage Dagger user, there's units like Matthew. Gaius does get a ton of extra damage, but it's not going to be much different than a regular attack boost if you're going to try to one round full health targets. Regarding builds, Gaius is pretty much your typical range sweeper like Eirika. At first, I was thinking he could use Candied Dagger with Flashing Blade 4 for something like 16 true damage on hit, and that would be a really neat execution build to finish off low health targets. Problem is, if the enemy isn't at full health, you lose 7 true damage, which is a lot. That means we're kinda just left with Desperation once again. It would be really solid with Flashing Blade 4, but there's also Life and Death and so Sparrow. Gaius does have some good base HP and should be able to tank a hit. If you can afford Flashing Blade 4, there is the niche of having the plus 4 or 5 true damage from the Candied Dagger with the 5 true damage of Flashing Blade when initiating, assuming you win that speed battle. This gives you 9 or 10 damage to finish off insanely tanky targets. But if you want to run a Savage Blow set or AoE set, you're never going to get the Refine to proc besides that first enemy. Sadly, it's just not a perfect pairing. All in all, I don't think it's that bad of a Refine in terms of killing power. I think it's quite good for that, honestly. I was just hoping for something different. That's going to be it for this batch of refines. Let me know what you think about these weapons in the comments. I'll probably be refining Eirika's Gleipnir because it requires very little investment in terms of a build, and I do want to give it a whirl. Coming up, we have the Fates banner with stats included, and we'll have Iago's Grand Hero battle as well. I do also plan to talk about this month's ephemera units in a quick video. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.